stress reduction was started by a man named John Kabat-Zinn. Does that name ring a bell? Yeah.
We talked about him in my lectures in the 80s.
In the 80s, yeah.
His first book.
Yes. So way back in the 70s, actually, John was a young man and had just finished his doctoral work in molecular biology. So he had a PhD, fresh out of university, and was looking at a very promising career following that trajectory, molecular biology. But he had been practicing meditation and yoga, and he was on a retreat, and he had one of those aha moments and thought, well, why don't I see if I can bring this in right into the heart of the medical system? So back then it wasn't being done at all. In fact, the only research on meditation and the physical benefits of it was done with transcendental meditation, and not extensive. So he spoke with people at the University of Massachusetts Medical School in Worcester, which is a very working class city. I don't know if any of you've been to Worcester yet, Kathy. So it was really kind of out there. Now it's not out there, right? Yoga is in almost every newspaper and magazine, and meditation, but it was a different time. But they agreed, and they started a program which was called Stress Reduction and Relaxation. And he worked with the folks that the doctors couldn't help anymore with their pain, whether it was chronic pain or a form of anxiety, whatever. They just either had done enough surgery or medications or whatever, and they said, there's nothing else we can do. So he said, we'll send you to John. So John had physicians doing research right away, and the research showed with this, it's an 8-week program, so I offer that in the Metro Denver area. It's offered around the world. It's an 8-week program that you'll learn quite a few of the tools today. In this 8-week program, which has home assignments in between classes, and it's done in a group setting, people actually, not just did they feel more inspired about working with their stress, but actually there are clear markers of reduction in stress or increased immune function and a sense of overall well-being, and they're just what am I trying to say? The studies continue, and now it's met with neuroscience. So there's you probably are familiar with some of these studies. It's usually quite amazing, even from the level of that psoriasis, when people were doing MBSR practices and going through the same treatment. I don't know the technical names. Photosynthesis. No. They go into these light booths. So if they were while they're in there doing a mindfulness practice, they were healing 3 times faster, just by simply doing something called a body scan when they were receiving treatment. So it's working on everything from the level of the body to more psychological issues. And now MBSR, which is the acronym for it, is offered in prisons, still in hospitals, in schools, in corporate settings. It's almost like you name it and you'll find somebody bringing MBSR into that environment. John wrote a book called Full Catastrophe Living. It was his first book that described this, so if you're interested in knowing more about what the full 8-week class is, you could read that book. Then there was a turning point. You know how it's interesting how some things come into the forefront and some things never seem to get the attention of our culture, the society? Well, Bill Moyers did a special called Healing in the Mind, and everybody in this room is old enough to probably remember that. Sometimes I teach and then people go, Bill Moyers, and and he did a special called Healing from Within, and in that special one section was on John's work, and that kind of launched his career. Now he's nicknamed Mr. Mindfulness. I read that somewhere recently. But he has done a lot. He's brought a lot of people into these disciplines in our culture, and especially powerful is that the scientific evidence, and also that it's a secular approach. even though it is rooted in practices that date back even pre-Buddha, but they often associated with Buddhism, it really has nothing to do with any particular religious or spiritual path. Because it's just about being human and learning something about the human being, as you mentioned, instead of the human doing, which we probably know better. So what does it mean to just be? And there's so much richness if we can learn how to do that even just for 1 or 2 moments many times throughout the day. When we don't, then something that we've labeled stress usually arises. So these practices are formal, and they it might be half hour, 45 minutes, but they're also just mixed into the fabric of your daily life. So that you can remember just this moment is enough. Just being me as I am right now is enough. In order to do that journey too, you have to look a little bit at, of course, what's going on in the mind, which I think you all mentioned a little bit when you were introducing yourself. So the mind has many patterns, it has a certain kind of momentum. Sometimes it's like a gushing waterfall, many, many thoughts, many emotions, many things coming through. It's seldom like a very calm, still lake, where we just feel like that calmness, that ability to just abide and rest without big waves. We don't feel that much. But actually, deep down, that is its nature. The mind, by its nature, is actually calm and clear. You mentioned when you're relaxed, things are more clear and stable. So these practices help us see that. So what is the view then? I'm going to say this before we get started in the practice. What is the view? Do you do mindfulness practice to improve yourself? What do you think? Kathy?
I would think, well, I think improving yourself for me would be just being calm with myself. So I don't know if I'm like improving my being in terms of I'm a better person, but I think I would be improving my functioning, my life, by being a calmer person. So.
I see. Yeah. Makes some sense. Like, is it truly changing who you are, or are you coming home to who you are? So there's a benefit from doing it, but who we are, our innate being, is not fundamentally flawed. So that's the view of this work. But it's hard because we have many messages, and we tell ourselves that we've heard, maybe we learned our lessons well when we were young, when they said, no, that's not good, and no, all those messages, no blame, right? And somehow, when we're stressed, we can often move to some sense of fundamental badness or wrongness, or I've made a mistake, or this is not workable, all the kinds of messages that would make it difficult for us to return to a state of calm. So it's this fundamental wholeness, the way John Kabat-Zinn refers to it. He says, if you're breathing, there's more right about you than wrong about you. So if you've come to MBSR, some people come because their life has completely spun out of control. I don't hear that in the room today, but that is sometimes it. Or they've had surgery after surgery, or they have problems with addiction, or the pain is so intense that 24/7 they say that they're just a bundle of nerves and anxiety. So to hear, well, really fundamentally, there's a lot more right about you than wrong about you. So that's a good place to start. And in any given moment, you might feel it now. You might have felt it when you woke up, or when you appreciate the colors or smells or taste of something. You might feel in that moment, you may not recognize it, but you might have this sense of wholeness. Nothing needs to be added, just fundamentally whole and good. So what is mindfulness? Anybody want to throw out a definition, since I'm tossing that word around and you probably have seen it in every internet article that you looked at before you came? What is mindfulness? Anybody want to give it a try?
I would think it'd be somewhat of a focus on self, mindful of self.
And what does the mindful part mean?
It means that you're within yourself and not being pulled apart by everything else around you.
Okay, all right. So that's one aspect of it. That there's this ability to place yourself somewhere, and you're describing it inwardly. So there's an interior discipline associated with it, without everything that happens pulling your attention away. Yeah. Could we be mindful outside of ourselves? Shannon, you want to say? Do you want to say something like, how does that happen, or how do you know that?
I think in my work, it's a lot about using your attention and your awareness and being able to focus that in many different ways. So, yeah, you could be more inward focused or more outward focused, or focusing on one area or trying to focus on the whole. Or
Yes.
Yeah, it's just sort of intention for me, intention based.
Yeah. Okay, so there's an intention also. So the mind itself has this ability to be like a laser beam. Let's say you really wanted to know what was going on in your knee because you hurt your stomach. Or you can expand the whole body and have a sense of the whole body. You can feel yourself in this room and the quality of the air around you right now. You could shift from being a little hot to a little cooler. They call it the feeling of light. And it can go on and on. In fact, because the mind can be limitless in terms of letting your mind expand